Hey guys, welcome back to another Unfiltered Gamer Kickstarter board game review. Today's game up on the chopping block is a dungeon crawler game, which is thick and yet thin all at the same time. It's made by Jack Spooner and it is called Dungeons of Infinity. Dungeons of Infinity is 1 to 4 players based on the copy we currently have. It's about 30 minutes a player, and the game is a semi-light, depending on the quest you choose, to very, very heavy dungeon crawl, where players are going to go around the board similar to Betrayal at the House on the Hill, where they're going to move their character from one tile to the other tile, while also leveling their character up, increasing their item inventory, and a bunch of other crazy stuff, like the tiles are going to be filled with water, the tiles are going to get cave-ins, and all that other good stuff. We're going to go ahead and take a look at the game and see what you guys think. Now, setting up Dungeons of Infinity can look pretty daunting at first. However, it's not that difficult. In fact, all you do is separate all the cards and place them in one location, separate all the tiles as well as the little rubble markers and chest markers in another location, and currency, and then set up the player boards and have each player select a character. When choosing a class in Dungeons of Infinity, there are 4 different types to choose from: Wizard, Warrior, Thief, and Paladin. Each of these characters have their own specific class deck, and you also want to set up these little cubes on your character board that represent either your health, your level, or your experience. Afterwards, your character is pretty much complete and you're ready to start the game. For instance, if I was going to select Archibello the Warrior, I would then go ahead and place his experience tracker at 0, his level marker at 1, being the yellow slot, and the health tracker will be placed on the yellow slot, and every character is different. For this one it's 13, maybe the rogue will be less. Also, you'll notice that there's a bunch of numerals here. You have the HC, which is your hit point value, which will determine whether or not you're going to hit monsters, the noise level, whether or not bosses will chase you, your power and your defense, as well as your action points. Now, every single ability requires a certain amount of action points, and if you use these specific action points for this specific character, a boss event card will be drawn. Combat, move, and run. So if you were to perform combat or move, at the end of your turn, you would draw a boss event card per one of these actions you take. The last thing you'll notice is at the bottom of the card is going to be your equipment, where you have your right hand and your left hand, your body and your feet. And all characters are going to have different things they're going to place into these slots. For instance, this warrior can hold a shield in his left hand and an axe, sword, and knife in his right hand. As well as body, he can have his armor, and feet, sabatons, or sandals. Alright, so now that the board is pretty much set up and every player has chosen a character, the last couple things you need to do are pretty simple. The first thing being place the starting tile down. You place it in the middle of the board, and also place these starting store items down. Every player will get to choose from these when it's on their turn. Every player will also get 3 little gold tokens, as well as deciding a room content chart. And there's a bunch of different ones. You select one randomly based on your difficulty, and that will determine what the tiles do when you lay them down, as to what risk cards you draw. The last thing you do is roll your d20 for initiative, and players will get one of these to go first, second, third, or fourth. Okay, now that initiative has been rolled, each character is going to be placed onto the starting location. And because the warrior was able to achieve initiative, he gets to go first. And before doing anything with his 3 action points, he's going to go ahead and buy from the shop for free for the first round. And he's going to choose the ringmail and the two-handed axe. He will spend these 3 currency tokens and buy them. 1 for the ringmail and 2 for the axe. When he equips them, he will increase his power by 2 with the axe and his defense by 1 with the ringmail. So they'll be equipped into his slots. Now he will perform his actions for his 3 action points. The first thing he's going to do is move, which costs 1 action. Now there are many different actions in the game. In fact, there's almost 22 of them, and not including the cards in your character cards for your strength or magic, depending on what character you are. And so the basic move is just to obviously move. And we'll go ahead and draw a card from the Dungeons of Infinity deck and place it on the board next to the starting tile. Then, indicated on the bottom left-hand corner of the card is a number, and that number will represent what happens on the room content chart. And in the room content chart, this says that a body is found. So we'll go ahead and place a body token in the room. Now that the warrior has removed 1 action point from his turn, he'll go ahead and spend another action point to remove the body and check to see what it is. And he gets a Cryosphaze orb, which will allow him to equip it onto any single weapon that he has, and it will give him an additional action point. Now this is a pocket item, so it doesn't count towards his total equipped items. It'll cost him 1 point to equip, and so that leaves him with 1 action point, but however, because the Cryosphere gives him an additional ability point, he still keeps his 2. The next thing he's going to do is move into the next room and flip over a tile. And yet again, this one says 10 in the bottom left-hand corner. He'll look at his room content chart, and he will see that it's a treasure chest, and he will place the treasure chest in the room. Now, if he had a key, he could unlock this, but because he doesn't, he can't. And he could choose to end his turn here or continue until all of his action points are removed. After all of his action points are removed, it is then the next player's turn. After the warrior has completed his turn, he is then able to, or he has to, draw boss event cards. Now, the way he does that is based on what his character card says, and for the warrior, it's to move. And since he moved twice on that last turn, he has to draw 2 boss event cards. Now, if in a boss event it shows a tile number, and these both say 0, but if it did say a tile number, and that tile happened to be on the board already, a boss would spawn. And then that boss would start moving around based on the next boss event tiles that are drawn. Okay, so in our gameplay example, there have been many turns that have passed, and it is now the wizard's turn, and she's going to move yet again and draw a tile and place it on the board. Now, this so happens to be a 5, which is a floor covered in mist icon. They'll go ahead and take a risk tile with the same symbol and flip it over and read it. This is a surprise event. You enter the mist and it flows all around you. You hear a loud noise, and behind you, you see enemies forming to attack. They attack before you can react. So it says draw 2 times the number of heroes minus 1 enemy. So that's 2 times 2, which is 4, minus 1, which is 3. Then you go ahead and go to the enemy stack and take 3 enemies and place them in front of the hero. Now, if there were more than 3 enemies, you would form a second row, but because there's only 3, there's only 1 row. In which case, the attack would begin, and for the next 2 turns, the enemies will attack. So go ahead and take this little token here, this little cube, and place it on turn number 1. And now, combat is ready, and the wizard is going to start fighting these monsters. Alright, so now the wizard is in combat with all of these different spiders from the room filled with mist. And because these spiders all get to attack first, they'll go ahead and roll their initiative value, or their hit chance value, I should say. 15 being this one, so as long as it gets under 15, he hits, which is a 2, so he hits. 14, so it's a 3, he hits. And 15, a 15. And on a tie, he doesn't hit. Now, basically, these two are going to hit, so he will hit for 4 points of damage, or 4 strength, plus anybody who's weak against the ice attack, which he's going to be doing, will take an additional 2 damage. So 4 minus the defense of the wizard, which is 3, plus their robe is 2, which is 5. 4 minus 5 is -1, so no damage goes through. However, because she's weak against ice, she takes 2 damage and moves her health tracker down 2. This spider here doesn't have an ice attack, it just does 4 damage, or 4 strength, and that 4 subtracted by the 5 again, -1, it actually does no damage whatsoever. Now, it's now her turn, and she can perform attacks based on the amount of ability points she wishes to spend. Now, she has 3 because she moved once this turn, which means she can either use her basic attack for 1, or she can use one of her many different abilities. And in this case, she's going to use Fire Darts, and it costs 3 ability points. Fire Darts basically does always attack. It always hits on an attack, and it attacks 2 adjacent targets with power based on level. Now, she's level 2. So because she's level 2, she's going to do 8 power to 2 enemies. So she'll select these 2 here. She'll go ahead and then look at the defense of each of the enemies, being 3, and subtract her strength via the enemy's defense. So 8 minus 3 is 5, and 8 minus 3 is 5. And their health points total is 3 and 3. So both of these guys would die, and the little poison spider would be left alone. And that would conclude her combat. And she could perform more if she could, but because she's out of action, she can't do any more. If she were to destroy an entire row, she'd be able to draw rewards based on the row. Yet again, fast forwarding into the game, we have the warrior's turn, and he's going to move 3 times, satisfying all 3 of his action points and ending his turn. Now remember, boss event cards come at the end of a turn based on what the character does, and for his action to move, 3 boss events will have to be drawn because he moved 3 times. So the first boss event we'll flip over is going to be a boss event 12. And if there's a 12 on the board, that means the boss spawns. And there just so happens to be one. So the boss spawns there based on the card you draw from the boss event deck, which is going to be an enraged giant, which is a very scary mofo. Now, he still has to do 2 more boss events. So he's going to flip over his next one, and this one is a boss event 0, Rage Run, which means the boss is going to move 3 spaces, and for this turn, he's going to be at -2 defense. There's also a very small subscript at the very bottom there, which means you roll a die. Oh, and 11, that means he's going to move south, but he can't because there's no south here to move, so he'll stay right where he is. And then the final event card here, boss event, which is a 4, move 1 to the person with the greatest amount of noise. Now, if you were to look at the character sheets, you would notice that the wizard only has 3 noise, where the warrior has 5 noise. So the boss is going to move towards the warrior, but it just so happens to be closer to the wizard. But because this is the only legal target or legal action he can perform, this is where he goes. Afterwards, all the boss event cards are discarded, and the next player's turn begins, and hopefully the boss doesn't move and try and kill somebody. Now in the game, there's many different scenarios and little campaigns the players can do. And throughout the game, once the players have completed their objective in some form or another, or in the competitive version, if everybody gets knocked out, I believe, or if in the cooperative version one player dies, then the game will be over based on the specific scenario or campaign. And that's pretty much how you play Dungeons of Infinity. It's a pretty crazy game, and it involves crazy bosses following you around while you're trying to run away from them, as well as accomplish your quests and all that stuff. And it's very, very interesting, and it seems thick, but at the same time, not so thick. Well, let's go ahead and see what I think of the game. Alright guys, so that's how you play Dungeons of Infinity by Jack Spooner. Now this game, like I said, is complex, but easy all at the same time. There's a ton of stuff, and being an Ameritrash gamer, I love tons and tons of stuff. And there's a ton of books too. You have a huge reference guide, you've got the campaign and scenario guide, as well as the quick start guide. Now luckily, you don't need those 2 books to start. This little quick start guide is all you need to know about the game, and you can go ahead and read maybe, 8 to 10 pages to really get a good idea of how to play the game. The reference guide is just there to help you out, and the quest and scenario guide is basically going to be to let you decide which ones you want to do. And I played most of the quests for this game, so questing I found phenomenal, and if the campaign is anywhere like the quests, this game is going to be solid in that aspect as well. The art, while may not be fully complete, what is there is very good, very high quality components. The length of the game is about 30 minutes a player, like we said originally, and that might change based on how the Kickstarter goes, I'm not sure, but I think it's solid dungeon crawl, style amount of time to play. The replayability of the game is there as well. This game is never going to be the same no matter what you do. Just like Betrayal at the House on the Hill is different with the mansion and how you can craft the mansion anyway, the dungeons in this game are infinite. Dungeons of Infinity lives up to its name in that aspect. You have the room content chart, which changes how the dungeons are played out, as well as the bosses and how they spawn and how they chase after the players. You're feeling like you're trying to complete this quest while not having your allies screw you over, while also watching out for the boss who's chasing you around the board. And if you're quiet, and smart, you can avoid the boss, but there's tons of other stuff to deal with. Whereas if you're the big hulky warrior, you might be strong as an ox, but you're going to get stomped on. Overall, this game is really solid. And if you enjoy dungeon crawler style games, or games that have a little bit of that take that aspect as well as tile flipping, you're really going to enjoy this game, and I really highly suggest you check this one out. Alright guys, this has been another Unfiltered Gamer Kickstarter board game review of Dungeons of Infinity. Jack wanted to let you guys know that he is giving away 3 prototype copies a month before the Kickstarter campaign. You can check out his Facebook and his website for email subscriptions, and that's how you can get these specific giveaways. And there's going to be a big grand prize, which will give you a bunch of extra stuff as well. So don't forget to check out his Facebook and his website to see if you can get these games. Thank you as well, and if you enjoyed this video, go ahead and check us out at unfilteredgamer.com or via our YouTube. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment, the 3 basic rules, as well as checking out our sponsors at everythingboardgames.com and thegiveawaygeek.com. Appreciate you guys watching, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Be it either health, experience, or simply level. Damn it. Present what each of the rooms do. Sometimes it will no, I gotta start that over. After the character's turn has been spent, as the warrior has I'm gonna start that over. I don't like how those sound. Yeah. And if you're a dungeon crawl enthusiast in any degree, I would suggest definitely giving this game a good holler or a good check out. Alright guys, well that's pretty much all I gotta say about Dungeons of Infinity. I look forward to seeing you guys later. I'm going to start this whole review over because I messed up the very last seconds. Okay.